You're listening to The Justin Herman Show, where every episode he has conversations with interesting people. Here is your host, Justin Herman.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out another episode of The Justin Herman Show, and I am Justin Herman, and I'm really excited for this episode. We have a really good guy named Luke on here. He just came out with a brand new book, really smart guy. He's a church guy. He's a leader. I caught up with him in Los Angeles. He was speaking at a conference. He's going to talk about that a little bit, but he is an influencer. He's not looking just at what is right now. He's looking at what could be the future, and he's kind of dialed in with it. I mean, he has a great following. He is young, he is vibrant, and he has great ideas. And we get into talking about some of the dark spots of the church, things sometimes the church doesn't want to talk about. I've been in the church, I've worked in the church, I'm still part of the church, and I agree with a lot of the perspective that he has. I share that perspective. So it was a really fun conversation. I think everyone's going to like it. If you don't, then don't share it with anyone. Keep it to yourself, keep it quiet, and check out another episode another time. But if you like it, obviously, go over, leave a rating, leave a review, and share it with some of your friends. And hit us up on social media. Links are in the show notes to his book and everything else we touch on. I hope you have a great time listening to Luke. He's awesome. Here we go. You're here in LA. Mm-hmm. Why are you here in LA? What are you doing here?
I am speaking at a conference here. So I got invited. Sometimes I get invited to things that I don't expect to get invited to, but I show up. I just like to be here and be with the people, speak a little bit, interact with some people. So it's been good, man.
Can't beat that. Well, Controlcast Podcast, super happy to be spending time with you here in LA in your hotel. We're in one of these business lounges, which I love. So you have a book coming out. Let's just start there quickly. Book's coming out. What's the title of the book? Why did you write it? Give us a little bit.
So the book is called Your Mess Matters, and the subtitle is Trusting in the God Who Creates from the Dust and Redeems by the Blood. And, there's a lot of things that go into why I wrote the book. I think the biggest thing is, as a pastor, I had interacted with so many people, and it didn't really come down to theological things or anything else really as to why people were feeling like they didn't want to be a part of the church or they didn't like Christians or anything that has to do with Christ in general. They really just felt like, for the most part, their lives were too messy. And because of the mess that they had in their own lives, they were struggling as far as like, well, I can't go into the church because of my mess. I can't really interact with those people because my stuff is too messy. And I was just like, I'm sick of this. And then in all of that, I ended up actually going through a situation where I got sick myself, and it was just crazy. We couldn't figure it out for 6 months. What was wrong with me? At one point, they thought I had cancer. Like it was wild. And in the midst of that, I ended up preaching a sermon series at the church I was at the time. And from that sermon series, I ended up writing this book, and it's crazy. It's crazy what pain can create, man. So there was a lot that I learned in suffering that made its way to the pages, and hopefully it's going to transform some people's lives.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of people who will agree with that, but they haven't written a book about it. What led you to write a book about it? Because a lot of people would say, man, that sounds great. Like I buy into that, but they haven't written a book about it. You did. What was it uniquely that pushed you to write a book and make it a whole big thing?
Because I was really, as I was having to answer these questions, I was like, you know what? What would I say to me that I believe that would help other people believe what I believe? What is something that I wish I could read every day when I was feeling like my life is not clean enough, like I'm struggling with this too much, like, how am I going to go through these things and at the same time feel like I have a seat at the table as far as it comes to the church and being in relationship with God? Like what is it? And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing that. And I did. And what started out obviously is that sermon series. I was like, I got to keep going because that idea, it started to develop and grow. And I'm hoping as a result of that, people are going to read this book and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I needed to read this because I felt like everything that I was, all the stuff I was dealing with, that was keeping me from having this relationship with Christ where I could flourish and where I could see myself grow in the church. And I just am like, you know what? Like, enough of that. Let's jump into this thing. Let's go full-fledged into the mess. That's where the best work happens anyway.
Is the target people who are in the church, who've worked in churches, and people who've attended churches? Like, who's the target for this book?
The target is really, I hesitate to say everybody because like that's what every author's like. It's for everybody.
No author's ever said that before.
No. But I honestly, I think mostly it's for people that are in the church, because a lot of the language, it's not Christianese, but it's like you have to have interacted with Scripture to some degree, probably, to understand and feel some of the things that I say in the book. But at the same time, I think it's also it's approachable enough to where if you're not in the church and you're considering it, or you've been hurt by it, or you're just maybe trying to hope in God again, this is a book for you.
So I've been in the church, and I've been in some pretty messy situations, and it sucked.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes.
Big time. Have you worked at a church? You've worked in churches before?
Yeah, man. When I was 23, I co-planted a church.
What was the name of it?
And I got married in the same year. Hill City Church.
Okay. I don't know where that is.
Yeah, it's in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Okay. So you co-planted a church.
Co-planted a church with another couple.
How did that go?
Great. I love the couple. Still do. Talk every week. But planting a church, it sucks, right? I mean, it's hard. It's messy, literally. It's dealing with new people that you think are always going to be there. They leave. People, I mean, money is hard. You're trying to figure that out. Like it's all, I mean, that's a different kind of dependence is what I found pretty quick.
Would you do another church plant?
I would.
How old are you now?
I'm 26.
So
I'm going to
you're
be 27 next week.
So 27 next week. You were 23 when you planted it. Mm-hmm. Would you do another one?
I would.
Would you recommend other people who are 23 to do them?
No.
See, when I was in college, it feels like everybody was like, oh man, I'm going to be a church plant. Just like Paul, I'm going to build tents and plant churches. And it's just that's like the Mecca. If you do that, then you're like, you are a humble servant. And I looked at that and I was like, man, I do not want to do that. And I know a lot of people who are church planters. I'm not knocking
Why
them.
do you think they want to do that?
You know what? It was during a time when it was like, it felt very anti-establishment to like plant a church. Like we're not going to be a mega church. Like mega churches were like still kind of growing. It was getting a bad rap from some people. Mm-hmm. And I went to college in Missouri. So, it's like being bivocational. It's like if you're bivocational, you're it.
Yeah.
And I left to go work at a church in California, and everyone was like, I can't believe you're selling out. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking selling out? What are you talking about?
Moving to California.
Yeah, I'm moving to California. I'm working in Huntington Beach. You want to come visit me and have a free place to stay. So like, don't call me a sellout. But it was definitely, it felt like a lot of anti-establishment, grassroots. We're just going to do it our way. But I think a lot of it came from, I could be wrong, I felt like a lot of it came from an unhealth of an unwillingness to submit. Mm-hmm. They weren't willing to, they didn't want to submit to anyone. They didn't want to work for themselves. They want to be an entrepreneur but do that in the church realm, which means planting churches, right? So, and we're going to do it the right way or the biblical way. Mm-hmm. Always drove me nuts. Yeah.
I think, on my end, I would say I see that. I think there's a little bit of a gap between what you're saying and the age group that I'm dealing with and seeing the way that they want to do it, or maybe not the way they want to do it, the reasons that they want to do it.
What do you see?
I'm seeing people that are growing up in a world where they have social media and mega churches are hot, and that's the thing that everybody's trying to do. It's the sexy thing. And so they're trying to jump in on it, not because they feel a burden necessarily for the community or to reach people for Christ, but because they want to be these guys that are flourishing and that they think are like killing it. So
church plants aren't mega churches, though. They know this, right?
You say you would think but and I don't say that out of like this is what I know, you're an idiot, like I say that out of in my naive 23-year-old self, really 22 at the time, thinking this is gonna blow up, this is gonna be amazing. I'm just like, and I'm humbled, so it's a different view, and it's not one that I can say like, in my wisdom, I have found out. It's like, God humbled me real quick. So it's a different way of figuring it out. But
there's a lot of dying churches in America, though.
Yeah,
dying churches. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not. I was at a church recently doing some youth talk to the leaders, and they were talking about how they invest more money into their knitting ministry. It's been around 40 years. And then in their youth ministry.
Yeah.
And they were pretty upset about it, which, I'd be pretty upset about too. And then I found out that in the knitting ministry, they don't allow students. So if you're junior high or high school, you can't be in the knitting ministry.
I'm sure there were a ton of junior high and high school students that wanted to be in the knitting ministry. Though.
Yeah. And believe it or not, this stuff's making a comeback. It's kind of hip now to do it. But the bigger point that I saw was, man, in the church, you have something that is telling students you can't be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine a bunch of old women doing knitting, sewing, whatever. Okay, I'm not into that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Who are like, hey, let's bring all the young people in and let's just do it together, and this just generational things happening. But there's a lot of dying churches who, like that, have just really old thinking.
Yeah.
And, I would rather walk into an old dying church and help bring it back to life than do a church plant and set up tear down every week. That sounds like hell.
Yeah. Church revitalization, I think, is going to start picking up big time.
Do you think so?
I think so. Well, if it's not, it should. I mean, so you're telling me that there are some churches that have maybe even just 10 grand in a bank account, or they're down to pennies as far as you can't really have a staff or anything like that, but they have something. They have a building. They have some kind of people in their area that know their name, even if you were going to change the name and maybe change the way the building looked or something. Yeah. I'm just like, there's something, it's kind of like out of the ashes, man. It's like a phoenix a little bit. It's I'm trying to see
little Harry Potter reference.
That's what I'm saying.
I support that.
Can we see that? Can we see that rise?
Yeah.
And I think is redemption not ultimately like a gospel idea anyway? I'm just like, maybe a lot of these churches, they're not dying because it's just like, oh, it's just trash and they're just meant to go away. Maybe there's an opportunity there for some people to pick up the mantle.
Yeah, I like that. I support that.
Yeah.
I worked at a church for a while that was really into going into old churches and taking dying churches and taking them over, making them campuses. That was a big part of their strategy, identifying the sick ones and being like, hey, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna make them a deal they can't refuse, and just take them over and flip them. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Circumstantial. It would depend. I kind of like to think now, if I were a dying church, I like to think that I might go, you know what? I'm not in a healthy place. This church isn't in a healthy place. Maybe there's another church that is in a better place financially. They have a leader that's equipped for this, and they could come in here and take this over, and we could be under them. Now, I'm not crazy about it, because I think it's kind of like, are we just trying to grow our church, and we just are like, this is an opportunity to take over the city, but I think there's something there too. I think there could be something there. It's different. That's different than revitalization. That kind of sounds like a weird way of practicing territorialism, but I at the same time think you could have the right heart in that.
What's revitalization? How would you define revitalization?
I would say taking something that is truly dying, and I would almost do that Harry Potter birthing it from the ashes type thing, going look, this is a complete and total disaster. We need, it's not like a do you want to, it's more like we need new leadership, new people in here,
new vision.
It needs everything. Yeah. And it's just that's the thing, it's some churches, I think they get lost so much in sight, right? They're just man, sight's different than vision, It's what is God telling you to do? What do you see that God is showing you for this city, versus just being oh my gosh, I'm panicking about everything that's in front of me. So I think sometimes it just takes someone with new vision to come in there and get that thing rolling.
I love that. The church and messy people, why isn't it a match made in heaven? Why is there such a issue with messy people in the church? I felt like Jesus was hanging out with messy people all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a total misconception on our part. Also, I think you gotta, you kind of gotta look at the American church versus the international church, the capital C church. So, I mean, by the grace of God, I've been able to travel around a lot, and I'll tell you, from a place of privilege, we're allowed to, we have like a massive influx of money and people with ideas, and everyone like goes home to comfortability, and they have time to like sit and think on the couch while watching Sunday Night Football about what could have gone better. And so then they get upset. Whereas like places all over the world, they're like, hey, like this is like illegal that we're meeting like this, or it's very difficult that we're meeting. There's not many of us. This is a remnant. Like we're hell bent on unity right now. Like there is no way that we're going to let anything stand between us and what God's called us to do in this community, in this city, in the lives of the people in this family. And in America, it's a little bit, because of the comfortability we have, a little more difficult to make things happen that way. So people they can get lax. And there's some weird ideals in American churches and stances on stuff.
Like what?
Like not to get too much into the weeds, but it's just like,
don't think of it as the weeds.
Yeah, it's like, even, I've been around a lot of churches, and they're like, if this person like drinks, then they can't be a part of this church or something.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, and I'm like, here's the thing. Like,
I'm sad we don't have a drink with us right now.
I'm like, yeah, I'm
dying.
like, that's not accurate. That's not biblically accurate. That's not, but that's something that you learned growing up, and you really like feel that in your bones. And even if you know that that's not the case, and you're like, okay, like some people do that and that's their preference, you still don't like it for some reason. That drives you nuts.
So what about for a church that says, we don't want the staff to drink. We want them to sign a covenant. No drinking for the staff, but like, anyone else wants to drink, it's kind of whatever. But the staff, we don't want that.
I just find that interesting. I'm just like, I would ask why, like behind every, like what, I'm like, why? So like, I also find it interesting too. Like some people are like not going to want to drink at all. Some people are down to like socially drink. And I'll tell you what, like I know of a church where, I'm not going to say where, but there was a prominent college where I was at, and they had to sign a covenant that they could not drink on this staff. And that's where like all the college kids were that were drunk and needed hope. And like, or just that was where there were a lot of unchurched people that really could have used someone down there. They couldn't even be seen down there.
So they couldn't even be seen down there.
No,
okay.
Let alone have a drink. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just, I always think of like, Jesus is talking about how he's being called a glutton and a drunkard. You don't get that reputation by like not being around messy people and messy things. So I'm like, I'd much prefer to be called XYZ, you name it, and be reaching people in the middle of their mess, than have people be like, oh my gosh, this guy is like so amazing. But at the same time, I'm just like kind of privately like not exercising what I know to be true in the Gospels and to be acting Christ-like. So it's a fine line to navigate here. But it's like, it's funny, in other countries, the question doesn't get asked like, what do you guys think about drinking? Yeah. That's not even a question. They're just like, no, like, what do you mean? Of course we have like wine at dinner.
Yeah.
Like I've been to Israel 2 times. They drink too much.
A real compliment to my Jewish heritage, which I totally appreciate.
Yeah. I'm like this. I love the people so much. And it's just like, that's what they do. They're like, there is no shortage of like wine or anything like that. And I'm like, oh, like, it's funny. Like you have all these pastors.
Feels like they have bigger problems. They have bigger problems than arguing over wine.
Yeah, I'm just like, but and I'll tell you what, the mess teaches you that a little bit. The messier your life is, you kind of go, there's like some non-negotiables in my life as far as like faith and salvation, those things are concerned. But you know what, like jumping into the mess with these people, like we have crossed some denominational, ethnic, all kinds of lines for the sake of the gospel, and like what we do agree on versus what we disagree on. Yeah. And in the middle of that, you're going to have people that are like, that's a messy situation I don't want to touch. Like, why are you touching that line? And I'm like, I don't know. When I read the Gospels, Jesus didn't like kind of get close to that line. He stepped like way the heck over it. So
well, yeah. That's what I love. That's what I love about Jesus. I was just doing some lesson a couple days ago, and I was talking about Jesus when he was in like their house having dinner, and the disciples were like, "Hey, man, like I don't think we should be here. Like I don't know if this is okay."
Yeah.
And I can just imagine Jesus being like just totally messing with them, just being like, "Wait, what's the problem? Why wouldn't we be here?" And they're like, "Oh, there's prostitutes here. A prostitute? What's a prostitute? What is this you speak of?" And Jesus is totally messing with them because it's like, guys, if we're not going to be here, who else is going to be here?
Yeah.
And I love that about Jesus. Mm-hmm. What are some other things? You mentioned drinking. What's another thing?
Even like cultural things. Like, it's funny, we've brought up Harry Potter on this podcast. On my own podcast, I've been doing this series. Like, I saw some guy in a Catholic school in Nashville banned Harry Potter because they're like, if you read the Harry Potter books out loud, this is not a joke. He said, those spells are real spells that can bring on demonic forces. I'm like, all right, time out. Here's what's interesting about the messiness of this situation in the church. I'm like, all right, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, celebrated in the church.
Yeah,
obvious
studs.
reasons.
We love them.
Yeah, so we have Chronicles of Narnia, and we have
Screwtape Letters.
Yeah,
and The Hobbit.
Yeah, and then we have like Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. All right,
Gold.
I've seen, like, I've read all these: Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia. I've seen the movies.
I've seen the movies.
Well, and here's the thing. The Lord of the Rings movies are like terrifying, but it's funny. People are just like, oh my gosh. Like, we can't let our kids read Harry Potter because there's witchcraft and darkness and evil. And I'm like, really? That's crazy, because Lord of the Rings has witches and darkness and evil. And wow, I'm thinking about it. Chronicles of Narnia has witches and darkness and evil, but these guys are so celebrated. And I think we don't like the messiness around the fact that those guys are like, I mean, C.S. Lewis is like champion titan of the faith. And then like Tolkien, we know where he stood as far as like Christ and all that stuff. But then there's like Rowling, and we're just like, she's struggling in her faith. And she admits to that. And I'm like, now time out. Like, what's wrong with this? Because when I read those books, when I watch those movies, I'm like, those movies and books are about like how love overcomes everything in the world. That sounds like a gospel-centric idea, and especially that sacrificial love is what overcomes any forces that are coming against you in this world. And I'm just like, I've heard that before. Where have I heard that? So, it's great, man. Just those kinds of issues. I'm also thinking, I don't know, like the things people watch. It's too, like, I've been to some churches that are more concerned about like, are you watching Game of Thrones and like, are you loving your neighbor? And I'm just like, what are we doing?
Well, we become known for what we're against than what we're for, obviously, which sounds cliche to say.
It does,
but it's also true. Like, cliche things can also be true, and this is one of those things that's true.
And that's ultimately, like, that's a messy situation. I'm all for jumping into that. Like, great, like we can talk about it. But at the same time, it's not that you want to avoid that conversation. I'm just like, you are more concerned about that. There have been more talks in this church about if watching Game of Thrones is okay or I mean, like, I could make a case that anything's unbiblical for you to like. Why do you watch anything? Like, there should always be a why behind what you do for the most part. And it's sometimes it's more nuanced than that. But I'm like, it's more like your care for that is so great, you are missing everything else that Jesus has to say. And it's just concerning. And I'm just like, I love the mess. Like, I'm attracted to the person that's struggling, but it's funny too. Like, we know the struggle makes us strong. We would say that, until we're actually struggling.
Yeah. Gosh, you're totally right. Well, I've struggled before.
I never have. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
you're totally good. You're totally right. Well, the rest of us have struggled. I feel like I make some of my worst decisions when I'm like struggling through stuff. Yeah. Like when I'm in the moment, I'll make some really bad decisions that I regret later. Yeah, for sure. I'm famous for it.
Where do you learn lessons?
Well, luckily, my wife's smarter than me, so I listen to her a lot.
I was listening to someone the other day, and he said, you know what marriage has taught me more than anything? That we're always working on me. I was like, that's so true.
Well, you know who I really feel bad for? I really feel bad for all the girls I've dated throughout my life, because, man, because they didn't have the position to be able to really speak the kind of truth that I probably needed. Luckily, my wife, she ringed me up, so she does. Yeah. But man, oh man, they must have suffered through some difficult times. So I must have been a real schmuck when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, we all have things we're not proud of, but sometimes I can still feel, I don't feel like shame for some of the things that I've done in the messiest, like most moments where I've had the most struggle in my life. But I remember the feeling, and because I can remember the feeling and going, I never want this to be something that I feel again. I never want this to be like true of me. it's not that feeling is the driving force behind like why I'm trying to not do certain things and do other things, but I'm like, I want to be like pleasing to Christ. Like I want to be a pleasing aroma to God. So what is involved in me doing that? And I'm like, I'm never going to forget that feeling of when I knew that what I was doing was wrong. Not that God didn't give me the grace for that moment to get better, but because I'm like, there's something about keeping that in the back of my mind and knowing don't settle for that. Like don't settle when you're struggling. That's completely different than than just being like, yeah, I'm good to go. It's whatever. Like there's grace for that moment. It's like I am gonna like learn something from that moment and from that mess. And that's been a big thing for me. But even in the past like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, tell me more.
I think planting the church, obviously getting married. Hello.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And by the way, we planted the church and got married in the same year.
Did you get married at the church?
No, we got married
some other place.
Yeah, in my parents' backyard.
I got married in my in-laws' backyard.
Really?
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Well, it was supposed to save us a lot of money, and it rained on our wedding day in California, where by the way never rains.
Wait a minute,
I think
that's
it's
good
raining
luck.
today.
That's good luck.
So it is good luck, which is how I'll remember the story. But in the moment, my wife was really upset because my in-laws have a very, very nice house, and we had a whole outdoor thing, and the pool was there, and tables were everywhere, and we were going to get married, and the gazebo thing, the whole thing was going to be great. And then it starts raining, and it's like off and on, like what's going to happen? And we ended up pulling the trigger to get a tent. Like right before the wedding. It cost us $5,000. So like all the money we thought we saved, we just spent $5,000, and we got married on the tennis court. And it was pouring rain on our wedding day. Everything was muddy. One guy literally lost his shoe as he was walking back to his car, stepped in mud, foot came out, shoe left in the mud, left to the earth.
No.
A gift to the earth. What do they call that? Like a whatever to the earth.
Wow.
And it was pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But so you got married in the backyard.
We got married in the backyard.
No rain.
Well, it's funny. It rained all week. Did not rain that day.
What state was that?
Arkansas.
Okay. Does it rain normal in Arkansas?
Yeah. It rains a decent amount.
It doesn't rain in California.
It does not rain in California. But what's crazy? I had different circumstances, and I talk about them in my book. I had a migraine on my wedding day.
Really?
I get migraines too frequently. I have medication for them now when they come on, especially like if I'm somewhere speaking and I've just got a lot going on in my head. They're very like stress induced, which is like not great. And I've gotten better at dealing with it. But at the time I had a history of migraines. Like when I get a migraine, you know how some people will say something like, people will say they have a migraine. I'm like, you have a bad headache. Like you're talking to me and you have a migraine.
Yeah.
When I have a migraine, I am down for the count. Like can't look at the sun, can't smell food, or I'm going to vomit. So like light, any kind of like food, any kind of like interaction.
So it's like
people.
a serious thing.
Yeah, it was like a very serious thing.
So when people are like, I have a migraine and my forehead,
No.
you're full of crap.
And I'm like on my wedding day, I'm vomiting. People are like, wait, are you that nervous? I'm like, I my head feels like it has a heartbeat. Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so
maybe that was God telling you not to marry her.
I'm
joking. I'm joking.
She's going to love this. No.
Does your wife listen to your podcast?
I don't know.
My wife doesn't listen to mine.
I don't think my wife listens to my podcast. No,
Yeah,
but
okay.
You know what? It's because I talk through the ideas with her probably.
Yeah,
and
she's
she's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is a great endorsement. But you know what's funny? I like in the book, I talk about that though. Like I'm such a go person. Like, I mean, we're here. We were not supposed to record here.
No.
I mean, just fun fact, like we set it up to where we're supposed to be doing this. Like I'm supposed to be in Atlanta recording with you.
Yeah.
Just on the go, happen to be here. It's like, bro, you're in LA. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
I love being on the go. I love doing what we're doing. I love meeting people. And before my wedding day, I had like been going so much. Funny story. I actually was at Passion City Church helping them fill the dome in 2016, planning for that. And I met Louis Giglio for the first time there.
Whoa.
And word had made it around that I was getting married in 2 days. And I said, hey, Louis, what's going on? And
First name basis with Louis.
yeah. And I was like, it was funny though, because he had already said, which of you is getting married in 2 days?
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that would be me. And he was like, oh, okay. And I said, Pastor Lou, do you have any tips? And he said, yeah, don't travel 2 days before your wedding.
Louis seems chill as could be. He seems like a super chill guy.
We've had a few interactions since. I'm not going to act like I know him like on a
I do that stuff all the time.
Situation.
Andy Stanley's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
He's been on the podcast a couple times. He's my good pal.
Yeah,
all
best
listeners
friend.
know that.
You and Andy Stanley are our best friends. I mean, he's your top MySpace friend. So.
We chat a ton, and we're pals. He's a good friend of the podcast.
Is that him calling you right now?
Is that Andy? Nope, that's TD Jakes. Never mind.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Tough, yeah.
Don't worry about that. It's actually my wife texting me. No. She loves me. She just can't get enough of me.
Yeah, no, that must be nice. Yeah. But no, man, it's cool. I've been able to interact with him a few other times, and like he's someone I look up to so much that it's just been a blessing to even like be around the guy. So, but yeah, it was one of those funny stories. Came back, I'm just on the go so much, and I felt like God was teaching me on that day. I was in my room with the rag over my eyes before the wedding, in a just dark, no lights, and I'm like pretty much sobbing and saying to God, like, today of all days, are you kidding me, God? And I just, it's not like I've heard the audible voice of God or anything like that, but I just felt like the Holy Spirit's speaking to me in this moment. Like, sometimes you need to slow down in order for me to do the things you're going to need to do, like lead your wife, lead ministries, like lead people. And it's one of those things, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. So I'll tell the story all the time, and I tell it in the book, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. And my wife's not the biggest fan that I had a migraine on my wedding day, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it's a moment from God. It's a gift from God. I'm never going to forget it. And it helps me in times where I feel like I'm hustling all the time and stuff. I slow down.
Was the migraine gone by the wedding night?
Oh, of course.
That's what everyone's thinking.
Yeah, no, okay. I mean, like, of course. I'll tell you guys this. My mom is a nurse, and so she had like a bunch of friends that were like doctors and stuff that were invited to this wedding. And so we had like a doctor, shout out to Susan Scott if she's watching this, listening to this. She was like going from table to table asking for drugs for me, which is funny. I'm good. Like, yeah, she's just like, do you have this? Do you have this? She gives me this stuff. I start feeling better. Like even I can finally eat a little bit as things are starting to die down a little bit. And it was good to go on the wedding night. I mean, like I would have had to power through no matter what.
Yeah, of course. You got to do a biblical duty.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just like, are we even married if we don't consummate this thing?
You're not.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that. I was talking to, I have a buddy. I was doing a talk on sex recently for parents. I do a thing called Parent School. And it was a talk on sex.
That's an easy one, yeah.
It was great. And how do you talk to your kids about it? And when should we start talking about the whole thing? And I was sharing a story. A kid I went to college with, he was homeschooled. They never talked. They only talked about sex being like a bad thing. Like, do not have sex. Sex is wrong. Like, you're going to go to hell for that. Until you get married, and then it's totally good. Mm-hmm. And he got married, and on their wedding, and his wife heard the exact same stuff. Mm-hmm. And their wedding night, they just couldn't. They were freaked out by each other. They didn't know what to do. They slept like in separate beds or something. The whole thing was insane. He's telling me this.
You're lying.
I'm
right
not
now.
making this up. Well, if you're told from a young age that sex is bad, you shouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. If you do it, you're going to hell. Like it's wrong in every way. And then it's like, hey, you're married now. Like, go for it. That would screw you up if you're like 22 years old. Mm-hmm. That would screw you up.
Yeah, but you know what's funny, man? Like, nobody's more pro sex than God. It's just like I always like anytime I'm talking to youth, I go, here's the deal. Fences bring freedom. I've got a dog, love him, Knox, English Bulldog. He's 2 years old.
I love dogs.
We absolutely love him. Like we're one of those, when people ask if we have kids, we say we have one, and we don't have like human kids.
You're referring to the dog?
Yeah, we're referring to the dog. We're those people.
Now that's a little iffy.
Yeah.
I want you to know that I'm,
you're not behind that.
We may circle back to that.
That's fine. That's fine.
We're going to circle back to that for sure, actually. But keep going.
No, I'm looking forward to that.
So we're talking about sex with kids. You're talking about your dog, and the fences give freedom.
Yeah,
which I like so far.
I'm like, so fences bring freedom. I have my dog Knox, and it's like, listen. I live in an apartment complex. We live in a loft. It's great, but when we go out, there's other dogs. Like if I take him out, I have to keep him on a leash. There's other dogs there. There's cars that are running around in the parking lot. I mean, like he could get hurt. He could run away. He could get chewed up by another dog. Yeah. But there's an area in the back where there's a fence. And once we go to the fence, I shut the gate. There's no one else in there. It's just me and him. I take him off the leash, go crazy, do whatever you want. Like you're within the parameters that are safe. Here's the thing. Like it's the same thing with sex. I mean, and like, look, I've been married for 3.5 years. Like, I don't have a whole lot of like sex talk to bring you, but I do have this. Like, as far as youth are concerned, well, wait for the fence, because that's where the most freedom's ultimately found. Otherwise, you're going to be running around, and it's not that you couldn't have a great time, outside of the fence for a minute, but eventually you might get hit by a car.
Yeah, sin's great for a season. Doesn't something in the Bible talk about that? Like it's good for a season, and then you end up regretting it. Right? It's prodigal son story. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, and it is. It's like and it's not even necessarily like, oh my gosh, like this sin is so like fun. It's more just like exciting to be rebellious for a second, and then you go, I wasn't built for this. Something's wrong with this.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, like, God starts speaking to you in some of those things, and that's the beautiful thing about the prodigal son. But it's one of those deals where I that needs to be talked about more, right? I mean, because now you have all these marriages too, and I'll talk to people that are young and married, and especially the ones that grew up in like Christian households, homeschooled households. They don't have like sex ever, like, because it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I could never imagine that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I would not want that for my life.
Yeah, I'm like, man, like, you're married and celibate. I mean, tell me more. Like, what's going on? I mean, so it's like an episode of another 40-year-old virgin.
I'd rather be single with a bachelor pad than be married and celibate.
Yeah, no,
Sounds absolutely the worst.
Yeah, I mean, that's my wife only married me for the sex, I think. So
really,
yeah, I think so.
You came that highly recommended?
No,
those
not
are the
at
kind
all.
of Yelp reviews you're rocking.
Yeah, that's the Yelp review that you'll find there. That's the entire
just right
page.
On there. Just
yeah,
a girl
just the
after
entire
girl.
page. Oh my gosh, that's
how
funny.
terrible is that?
No, I just like
That'd
to
be really funny.
I just like to embarrass her every now and then. She knows I love her. But.
Oh, I mean, I embarrass my wife all the time. Me and her kissed on our very first date. We met on eHarmony. Okay, I could have been.
I met on Twitter. My wife.
You met your wife on Twitter?
That's basically like millennial eHarmony.
That's as millennial as it can get.
Isn't
on Twitter?
It?
How do you meet someone on Twitter?
Wait a minute. I disagree. I think like Instagram is more millennial. Like, who's on Twitter? Like, who gets on Twitter pretty frequently? I do.
I paint those with a big same brush. To be honest, social media stuff.
Okay, I can see that.
DMs.
It's funny. I'll get people though. They're just like, I don't ever get on my Twitter, and I'm just like, man, I think like it's more interesting to see what people have to say than like what they're showing me.
I'm on Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
I will throw grenades out there.
I love that.
And it is literally to me, it's the best. Some people hate it.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, what are you doing? And I love it because people will lose their brains over stuff.
Right.
And I think it's hilarious.
Another messy situation though, right? Like, you can make a stance on one thing. They're like, if you're for that thing, you're against all the other things that are like even borderline associated with it.
Oh yeah,
it's
100%.
Like, what?
Yeah. And the goalposts always change on and the Twitter sphere, the mob of the Twitter sphere. The goalposts will always change on what is acceptable or not acceptable.
Yeah.
The whole thing's hilarious.
I got something. I'll try to just remember it. I said something on Twitter. It's always funny because I can almost predict the responses that I'll get sometimes. And for the most part, you want to focus on the good. People like love the stuff you have to say, right? And they're just like, that was so helpful. And I'm like, great, praise God. But I said something like, hey, like, don't be surprised if God's not moving in your life if you don't have a prayer life. And they're just like, oh, wait a minute.
Hold on a second here.
God's will and prayer is not for him to move on my behalf. I'm like, yeah, I'm just
dude.
like,
go back to the 18th century.
I'm like, did you just like wake up and decide that you feel like being angry today? Because I feel like you did. I feel like you need a little more sleep.
Oh my gosh. That's the marketing strategy of most of Twitter.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is insane. But I'm like, man, you know what? I feel bad for you. Like, it's hard to live that upset. There are some like blatant things that you could be like, okay, this is like straight up heretical or something. But I'm like, really? I mean, you are nitpicking, man. But
it's so funny. I posted something the other day about something pretty critical of someone, and I'm not going to go into great detail with that. And someone messaged on Twitter. I like commented, hey man, you should go check out Matthew 18, dude. I don't think calling them out on Twitter is the way to go. And I'm like, bro, this is exactly what you just did to me.
Yeah,
you could have texted me that. You could have DM'd me that. You just put it out there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
You just did what you told me that I shouldn't do.
Yeah, I responded back. You really should check out Matthew 18. Like,
oh my God. To me, that's like, and I'm like, hey, dude, you should go check out Ezekiel 23:20. Oh, what's that? Go read it. That's the bull.
Yeah.
Balls one.
Yeah.
I find it to be so hilarious, the things that people will weigh in on Twitter that they probably don't care about in real life.
Sure.
But like in a few moments behind a screen, they're like, this is really important.
Keyboard warriors.
Exactly. They're like, I'm gonna weigh in on this. But they have no expertise on it. They have no real opinion.
Yeah.
But in that moment, they're like, I'm gonna type something. This is what I think, and it's like ridiculous.
The other thing too, though, is people will type something to me, right? And they would never say it to my face.
Oh, I love those people.
I've been around people that will not say the thing that they have said to me online to my face. It's funny, like I know like a lot of the youth listen, but I'm like, man, like one time everyone on Twitter is like an expert, right? They're a theologian, like a self-help guru, like a wellness coach, something. And I said something because people were using it to just like, they know that young people, especially young Christians, are I just want to get married so bad. I just want to be in a dating relationship so bad. And I can just tell that like you have these like kids like giving dating advice. I mean, like literally teenage kids giving dating advice. Now, what's funny is I say something, I don't throw tons of grenades out there, maybe like you do, but I did throw this one out there. I go, I would not recommend, and this is before I'm married, I was like, I would not recommend taking dating advice from somebody who's not married.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. You could get it from someone who's married, who's accomplished it and done it well and done it to a point where someone said yes at the end of that whole situation. And people are coming for my neck. They're like, Paul was single. Jesus was single.
Well, I don't think Paul was single.
I'm like, so first off, Paul was not necessarily single.
Yeah.
Second off, Jesus was God.
Yeah.
so there's that.
So who are you comparing yourself to?
Yeah.
Like,
so if you really want to flip the script, then don't get married. If Jesus was single, okay, then stay single.
Did you just give a lot of dating advice? I feel like I know there's things that we can kind of pull and what, but I feel like he talked about marriage a lot.
He talked about marriage, and
he didn't talk about dating.
Yeah, dating is not even a thing in the Bible. Like it's not.
It's all prearranged marriages.
Yeah, I'm just like, so it's funny, like, and there's so much more information in the Bible, especially like in Proverbs, that are about like, hey, accept discipline. Listen to people with gray hair, and people are just like, oh no, like I need to be the expert. That's what grows my platform. And I'm just like, recognize that. Like don't be so dumb. If you see people like, and you recognize they're just like what? Why are you doing that? But it's funny, we won't do that with anything else. Like in the church, we're like, oh well, Jesus was single, Paul was single. And first off, like even let's say Paul's single, he's writing the words of God, right? So here's what I would say back to people. I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing. Nobody's going to get up and preach on my blog. They are going to get up and preach on Paul's words because they're really not Paul's words. They're God's words that were spoken through Paul. Yeah. There's that. But it's funny, like you get through all this stuff and I'm like, I would never go into a building if somebody was like, yeah, this was actually built by someone who didn't go to architect school or anything. They don't even know building. They just like, did their best. And nobody's like, oh dude, like we should go into that building. That people would be like, do not go into that building.
Well, yeah.
I mean, but think about it. You don't do it with anything else except in the church and like young Christians. Like they'll be like, I'm the expert. I know because the Holy Spirit that's in Paul is in me. And I'm like,
see, this is great because you're hitting on something that I have strong opinions about. And that I know a lot of people listening are going to be pissed about. Or maybe not pissed, but they'll be unhappy with it. Because I have this very same perspective when it comes to training for ministry.
Yeah.
As it sounds like you do.
Yeah.
And when I share that, people are like, they just think that I'm insane. Like, no, you can be a graphic designer and then just decide to go do ministry. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, youth ministry. It's like, yeah, but do you know what you're talking about? Like, do they cover a lot of Bible classes, theology classes at school? Like, do you know what you're talking about? And I use the doctor example. Like, I would never go to a doctor and be like for surgery or for and they'd be like, hey, so how long have you been doing this? Honestly, I just walked in the door and they put a coat on me, but like I played operations as a kid. I think I'm gonna nail this. Yeah. I'd be like, are you kidding me? They're like, no, I actually work at the Starbucks down the road, and I'm an incredible barista. But today I'm going to be a surgeon.
Yeah,
and it's like that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, but and the thing is, just because I'm saying you shouldn't be doing that doesn't mean that you aren't valuable in something. If you're a barista, like I will pay you to make me a latte because I know you're going to crush that.
Yeah,
like it's just a seasonal thing, right? Like I'm married, but I'm not going to give marriage advice because I've been doing it for 3.5 years. Like I don't know anything about it still. I'm trying to figure it out. It's just, but these are basic things, right? These are not difficult concepts. If you've never studied medicine, then you shouldn't perform surgery.
Yeah,
Nobody
it seems like
disagrees.
you don't need to explain that. Yeah, it feels like everyone should be on
Nobody
board.
disagrees with me on that. But the thing is that's the thing with keyboard warriors. They'll be like, no, like the Holy Spirit is going to guide this knife straight into your sternum. I'm like, it is not. It is absolutely not, because here's what the Holy Spirit is going to do. It's going to call me to go and get educated and and do those things. And operate in His wisdom, as we move forward. There's no wisdom in being like, you know what, I'm doing this because you know what, I am exactly what I want to be today.
It's like people will say, I've heard this before. Man, you're just discounting my experiences. You're just discounting, my truth. And if you have crappy experience, I'm probably going to discount it.
My truth, you've just killed what truth is.
Oh, really?
My truth. What? Okay. If you have truth and I have truth, is there truth?
No, there's not.
There is no truth.
Yeah, there is no truth.
Truth does not bend and have different days. No, truth is truth. Like, truth is non-yielding.
So how do you respond to people like that? Because that's huge in this generation.
Yeah.
My truth. You got to respect it. You got to hear it. You know, it's valuable and it deserves to be heard.
Sure.
How do you respond being from the generation?
Yeah. You know what's great? It's easy to refute my truth. My experience is different.
Yeah. The experience one.
Now, if somebody's like, this is my experience, great. That's your experience.
But not all experience is good experience.
Not all experience is good
like you're giving dating advice, but it's like every relationship you have has ended in turmoil. It's like, maybe your experience sucks.
One of the kids said, I've dated girls longer than you've been married. Girls, plural. Dating a different girl. So what you're saying is you don't value the commitment. You don't even understand the end goal. This is a Christian. Right. And again,
that'd be so goal. I would love to meet that person.
I'm not mad at them. Genuinely. I feel bad for them because I want them to flourish. I want you to have a healthy marriage. I want you to have a good idea of and good thoughts as far as sex goes. I mean, in a healthy way. I want the best for you, but you are mad at me for saying, go to somebody who's done this well and ask them, because they're going to give you the best advice. They're going to give you godly advice. They're going to give you wisdom and understanding how to navigate these situations. Like that's a great thing to do. And people are mad at that. So
I'm a big Paul Timothy guy, and
discipleship,
discipleship, mentorship, like that. Find the Timothy with the older Paul, the whole thing. But sometimes it's so playing the other side. Sometimes it's not that easy. Mm-hmm. It's predicated on older people being down for that, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they don't understand it, and they're not for it, which bothers me. So no end. Like I love pouring into younger people.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm going to still be that way when I'm like super old. I hope I live to be really old.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's not like catching on in every single church. Like they're not every old person's like, man, we got to find some young people I can just pour in and get my life and experience to. And like, I think that's a big loss.
I think so too. And it's a lot of like what I've talked on, ironically, at this conference is like, and that's a generational gap and thing that we're trying to cross right now is like some people like to hold on to power for too long, like in older generations, and then in younger generations some people are too zealous for power, and it's not like the passing of the baton is like two people trying to hold on at either end, which means nobody can run, instead of someone being like, I'm going to give this to you, and I'm okay if you do better things than I ever did. I'm okay if your time is faster around the track than mine was. And then on our side of the generation, you got to have people that are willing to say, I want your encouragement, and because I've seen you run before me, I feel like I am equipped to run also. And if I do it better, I hope the person I pass the baton to can do it even better than I did. I mean, is that not what Jesus said? He said, you're going to do greater things than I am. I'm sending you a helper. And I'm just like, that's the thing. Like we gotta have Pauls and really, I'm trying to be, there's a guy right now that I'm discipling. I'm trying to be a Paul to him. And I'm like, I want to give you opportunities to do things that you might fail at. But I'm okay with that. If something goes drastically wrong, if you fail, that's going to be a problem, but we can learn from that. That's going to be a messy situation. But if you succeed and you continue to succeed, our organization is different.
Yeah.
It'll never be the same.
And people who want to hold on to power too long, young people who want to take it too quickly.
Yeah.
Man, that's a difficult thing.
It's a really difficult thing, but it's doable and it's biblical.
Yeah.
And that's the process of multiplication.
So I want to circle back to talk about this dog situation. Okay?
Yeah.
I want to talk about this dog situation. So do you treat your dog like a person?
No, we don't treat him like a person.
Is it a him?
Yes, it is a him.
Does he sleep in the bed with you?
No, he doesn't. He sleeps in the cage. He will get on the bed with us.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Does he wear clothes? Do you put clothes on?
No clothes.
Okay. Is there a stroller? Do you have a stroller for the dog?
No.
Okay.
My wife does like to dress him up for holidays.
That's different though. I think everyone should
okay,
dress
just
up
making
for
sure.
holidays.
Just making
holidays
sure.
is totally fine. That's fine. Any random day is not fine. Obviously.
Yeah. No.
The stroller with the dogs is huge in California. It's huge. People love to put their dogs in strollers and push them around like children, and it is gross.
Yeah, that's. I say it in kind of like a loose and loving way. Some people like that. That's one of those things where it's like, do you need to see somebody? Like, do you need help?
Yeah. I always say to them, I approach them. I'm fearless, by the way. I always say, no matter what kind of dog it is, I always say, my mom loves that kind of dog. Oh my gosh, my mom loves it. Can I take a picture to send my mom?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, yeah, sure. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, her name's Cinnamon. Oh, here.
Cinnamon.
Take a photo. Oh, my gosh. Cinnamon, smile. And I'm just like, this could not be any better. Like, to me, this is like level 10 good stuff happening.
How old are these people typically that have dogs in strollers?
It's really funny. I find that they're either really old, which you're pretty old. You get a pass on some stuff.
Yeah,
okay?
I was going to say.
I'm excited to be old. I feel like I'm going to swear a lot more when I'm old. I'm going to be a lot more dementia-y, even if I don't have it. I'm going to be like, oh, how did I get here? Why am I not wearing pants?
You can at least get away with it.
I'll get away with a ton. Okay?
Yeah.
Or they're young, like hip moms in Lululemons pushing their dog. And I'm just like, what in the world? Like, I look at my wife like, do you want to do that? Like, am I holding you back from having that life? And she's like, you're not holding me back from anything. Yeah. I don't want that life.
That's good.
So it's weird. And then there's like a big middle ground where it just isn't happening. Like the 40s and like probably like the late 30s, 40s, 50s, it's not happening. But once you get back into the 60s, 70s, it's like nuts.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting, I want to say dichotomy, but it's I can see how those are tied.
These are the California problems that I deal with.
Well, that mom with a dog in the stroller probably has like 14 million Instagram followers and like, is probably just crushing it on some level. So
I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope that that's not how they got famous. There's people who do get famous doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Which on one hand, it's like, how did I miss the boat on that? And on the other hand, it's like, I don't think I want to be on that boat.
Did we move the goalposts on fame?
Oh yeah. Reality TV definitely did that.
Reality TV. I mean, you can be social media famous.
Oh yeah, you can be social media famous.
People are chasing social media famous.
It's being influencers.
Ugh.
Gamers is huge. So, every youth pastor knows that there's at least one or two kids, if not more, in their youth ministry when you're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I used to say fireman or play in the NFL, astronaut, whatever. And they're like, I want to be a pro gamer. Which there's people who's making real money doing gaming. So it's whatever.
So that's different. Like to a degree, that's different.
The gaming is different?
Yeah, I think gaming is different than like, I just want to be like social media famous and I don't even know why. I just want eyes on me and I don't really know what I do or what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And I have some friends that are famous like that and they're crushing it and they actually have like really purposeful things that they're doing and it's been great to like know them.
They're purposefully famous because they're doing something.
Their fame is not just like, I just like being famous for the heck of it. They're actually like using their platform to society, to like ministries and like.
All right, so I like that.
Yeah, and so that's great. But I do know of some others where it's like, well, what? It's an interesting world we live in. But the gaming thing, like, I mean, regardless of what people have to say, it takes like a degree of talent. Like acting takes talent. Like singing takes talent.
Yeah, it does take talent.
Like things that require like skill. I mean, like that's the thing. There are some things people are famous for. I'm like, I could go do that right now for whatever reason. Like, when you do it, people love it. When I do it, I look like an idiot.
There's a girl in Florida who has an enormously long tongue. I read an article about this in the New York Post recently.
This is not true.
It's true. I'll send you a link. She has an enormously long tongue, and she makes money on Instagram and other places posting photos. Some of them are kind of sexual photos of her posing in weird ways in different outfits with this enormously long tongue, like a Gene Simmons. Like, it's probably an inch longer than a Gene Simmons from Kiss kind of tongue. It's huge. That's a weird thing to be famous for. But then again,
are you maximizing on opportunity there, or are you capitalizing on stupidity?
Well, that's a funny thing about America that I love and that I kind of roll my eyes at. You can make it in America,
no doubt,
in almost any way, shape, or form. Like, if you're willing to do, like, there's always
Shout
a
out
market.
To capitalism.
I love capitalism. There's a market for anything in America, and if you're willing to work hard, you can figure it out, because there's always someone out there who's willing to pay for something, so they don't have to do something. Which is a really good thing. But then some of the stuff is just kind of weird and odd, and just like, how did that happen? How's that contributing? Like, what is that giving to the world?
Right.
But some things don't have to give to the world. I guess they can just take from the world.
Yeah, it's a weird world that we live in, man. I don't hate it or anything like that. I question it sometimes, and I'm like, are those the things, the people that we want, like, youth to aspire to be? You know, like,
if Instagram was around when Jesus was around, would he have an account?
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
What kind of? Assume the disciples have an account too. What kind of rules do you think he would put in place, or like healthy practices would he put in place based on what we know of Scripture already?
That's the hard thing. That's why I hesitated on because here's the thing, like, I think the scariest verse for people in Scripture, especially young people, is John 3:30. Like, if he's got to increase, I got to decrease. And it's like, well,
yeah, most people don't want to decrease.
Yeah, people are like, wait a minute. I want Jesus to increase. I just kind of want to increase with him, you know? And it's just like,
that's exactly what it is.
And it's like,
why can't we both increase together? I don't know. I love him so much.
Yeah, that wasn't on the menu, so you can't order that. It was
they didn't tell me that at camp when I was doing they turned the heat up and started singing Oceans. They didn't tell me I had to
right. It's
give
like,
up Instagram.
Yeah, that's the thing though, is I'm like if truly decreasing and him increasing, like there are some, obviously, like, there are people that are well-known ministers or gospel singers, whatever, and it's like they are doing their best to decrease, and God's just increasing, like, their platform because they are so gospel-centered. And then obviously you have, like, the opposite, and it's just but it's funny. I think I don't know what he would do on that account. I'll tell you what, he's not posting, like, miracles. He's not like Miracle Monday hashtag, like, here we go, healing, here comes Lazarus, come on, man. Like, it's just he wouldn't be doing that. But is that not what we do? Like, it's just like, this is what I'm doing. I mean,
most banal stuff.
Yeah, it's like hard. So I do sometimes wonder if he would be like, hey, we're all getting together at this place, like, come and join us, and, like, we're just having dinner. Like, I'm providing. We have 12 loaves and, like, 5 fish.
Show
up,
like,
you know, it doesn't matter if 5,000 of you show up. Like, we're ready to roll. So
it's so funny. I'm always during times of tragedy, I feel like social media is hilarious to me.
Hysterical.
Because, and I forget who it was. I feel it was like Andy Jeselnik or Tosh.0. One of these comedians did, like, a bit about it. It's like, whenever a tragedy happens and someone's posting, like, you know, praying for whatever or remember whatever, and it's just like another way of saying, don't forget about me. I'm here too, and I care.
Yeah.
Like this, and in support of them.
I've seen
and
some
it's
of
like,
these.
come on, man. Like, and every time I see that, I'm always thinking, I think we all agree we're praying for everybody.
Is it not crazy though? Like, it's funny. Actually, it's the furthest thing from funny, but, like,
sad.
You have tragedies like that. I mean, dude, what's crazy is someone can die and people want to, like, capitalize on the death. Like, people are trying to be like, I knew them. We were, like, here's a photo of us from 2013. And it's like, you never said anything about this person, and now they're gone, and here you are? Like, what?
Yeah.
Is that not like gross?
Yeah,
I mean,
grosses
like,
me out.
I'm like, and the thing is, what's scarier though is I had an older guy say this to me once. He said, Luke, like, and he was asking about somebody I knew who I'm like obviously not going to name because it's bad, but he was like, do you know this person? I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay, I just want you to know that like older people, even if they're not like following you technically, like we see what you're doing and it affects like your future. As far as like, are we going to give you opportunity? People are like, well, God holds my future. That's great. You just may never like be a part of whatever this guy's doing because they see that and they're like, you are like so you-centered. Like how is it possible to have someone die or to have a hurricane and just be like, you know, what is the benefit of you just like being like, here I am? Like,
Yeah. Dude, I love having you on the podcast. This has been a fun conversation. Where can people pick up your book?
So you can go to Amazon, just search Your Mess Matters or Luke Lezon. You can go to Barnes & Noble's website, do the same, Target, Walmart, or you can just walk into Barnes & Noble and pick one up. But obviously people are more Amazon Prime people these days. And so go to Amazon, search my name, search Your Mess Matters, and it'll pop right up. And you can grab it on there.
We'll put some links in the show notes. So it'll make it easy for everybody. Dude, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Dude, thank you for having me on here, man.
So there we go. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, had a little time of relaxing, listening to an interesting conversation with interesting people. That's what we do on the Justin Herman Show. Talk, have conversations with interesting people, and you may be one of those interesting people. So send me an email. I'd love maybe to talk to you on the show and hear a little bit of your story, what you do, what you've been doing. I hope you have a really great time out there doing whatever it is you're doing today. Check out more episodes. They're coming soon. And I think you're going to like the one that's coming up next. We're talk to the guy who wrote, I don't know if he wrote the only book. I think there's other books out there, but he just came out with a brand new book about the carnivore diet. I know nothing about this diet. I was wildly interested in it. I think I'm going to try this diet. And we talk to the guy next episode. So hope you have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. I'll talk to you later. I'm Justin Herman, and this is the Justin Herman Show.